but it's worth it though for everyday use.
Yeah.
Good morning, Baton Rouge and surrounding areas. Thank you so much for tuning in to What's Going On. My name is Dr. James Gilmore, and I want to welcome you to our Thursday morning show of What's Going On. We are here on 106.1 FM every Tuesday and Thursday morning, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. right here on What's Going On, where we talk about what's going on in our community, what's going on in our state, the nation, and the world. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you continue to tune in to this show. We're continuing our series with political candidates, those that are seeking office. For the past several weeks, we've had candidates on the show to talk about who they are and to discuss their platform, their campaign platform. And so this morning we have some great guests in this morning to share with us. And we have a political newcomer who will be up first in our studio this morning to discuss his platform and where he stands on issues. Welcome and good morning, Brother Anderson.
Good morning. How are you?
Life is well. Life is well.
Good.
Thank you so much for coming in to What's Going On.
Absolutely.
I'd like to begin, as I do everyone, by just tell the listening audience who you are, where you're from, and who your mama them, and your educational background, as well as your work experience and background. A little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am Quentin Anthony Anderson. I'm a Democratic candidate for Metro Council here in District 10. I'm from Baton Rouge, graduated from McKinley High School. I'm a military brat, son of an airman, son of a Marine. I'm also the son and grandson of Methodist preachers. My mom is an AME preacher, and my grandmother, who actually today would be her, let's see, she'd be 85 this year. Today is her birthday.
Happy birthday, Grandma.
Well, heavenly birthday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But she was a CME preacher.
Okay.
I graduated from Louisiana Tech University with a degree in political science. I know that I think we have that in common.
Yeah.
And I think
I went to Southern.
Yeah, I got you. There is some commonality though, because I went to LSU for law school, and I think that you went to LSU for grad school.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
And so I
research. I see.
I try my best. Really, what I was looking for was to see if maybe we were frat or something. I'm always looking for an advantage.
I got you.
But my roots in the district are deep. I went to high school there. I went to law school there, and I've been living there for the vast majority of the time that I've been in Baton Rouge, and so it is near and dear to my heart.
This district, for those who may be listening that might not know, I always ask candidates to give their district boundaries.
Yep.
Name neighborhoods and streets so that folks listening to know wait, hey, I live in District 10, or I may know someone that lives in District 10. So where does District 10 represent?
And actually, I think District 10 might be one of the easiest ones geographically to identify. So it's pretty much everything from Southern University all the way down to the gates of LSU.
Okay.
It is the river district. It's about everything within about 2 miles of the river. So that's everything, and that includes downtown, downtown east, a lot of the Garden District, Beauregard Town, of course. That's going to be parts of Scotlandville, like Banks, and that's going to be the south. So where I went to high school, where I went to college, where I went to law school. So that is the district, and it's probably the most historic district in the city. A lot of history in Baton Rouge was done in this district. It houses the Capitol, it houses the governor's mansion, so it's an important district.
Okay.
It's a diverse district. It's an ideologically diverse district, but I think it's probably the most progressive district in the parish. And so that has also given me, I think, the ability to campaign on my values as opposed to having to compromise on them. Because this is a district where people care about things like climate change. This is a district where people care about things like equity, and people care about things like closing the gender pay gap. People care about things like racial justice. People care about things like policing reform. And so it's really easy in this district to be able to talk about the things that I care about and the things that have been a part of my life, because it's the values of this district.
Okay. And tell us, I want to go right back just to sum it up.
Yeah.
What type of work experience have you had or have you performed since finishing school?
Yeah, so actually probably about my first full-time job was I took a year off of college to go and work for Barack Obama's campaign in 2007 and 2008. And that was probably the most fulfilling experience I've ever had, because I knew, my family knew this was the guy. And so I took a year off of college at Louisiana Tech, went to Chicago, went to St. Louis after that to work on the campaign. And that was my first professional experience.
Okay.
Came back, finished school, went to law school at LSU, and during my third year, my first sort of non-paid but legal job was working at the Capital Area Alliance for the Homeless in their law clinic. And my job was to enroll a lot of our clients in Social Security and Social Security disability, because 95% of the folks that are coming through there were suffering from mental illness and they qualified for it. So that was an ability to give them some stability.
Okay.
Right after law school, I ended up working at Capital Area United Way. Raised over $2 million for that campaign from 2013 to 2014. And my job was to do the workplace fundraising campaigns in nonprofits and in government agencies. And so that gave me a lot of exposure to a lot of things in this district, like the plants. I'd go into the Exxon plant and I'd speak to their employees about giving, and it gave me a lot of insight into what makes them tick. And it's one of the reasons why I can talk about climate change without also feeling like I'm alienating the workers that work at places that might be perpetuating climate change, but their interest isn't that. Their interest is being secure, taking care of their family, having the dignity of work, being fulfilled. And that experience, I think, has given me insight into how to talk to different constituencies that may have different perspectives, but being able to speak to their interests. Right after working at United Way, I ended up in Colorado, actually, for the 2014 Senate race. I was organizing around climate change, organizing climate voters for an organization called Next Gen Climate Action. After that Senate race, we didn't do so well in 2014.
Those happen. You win some and you lose.
Yeah, you do. After that, I actually probably got the opportunity of a lifetime. A group out of Chicago called Voices of Youth in Chicago Education had been part of this 2-year campaign to reform the school to prison pipeline. And they had sort of gotten stagnant, and they were looking for a campaign director to get them over the finish line. The bill had been stuck in committee, and it was sort of their messaging had been ideological, and they were trying to figure out, how do we get past committee? Like, we want real policy. We don't just want to make a point, we want real policy. And so they hired me as their campaign director to get it over the finish line. I remember, because there was a bunch of kids who actually did the interview process, and I remember their final verdict was, he seems like he might be a black Republican, but that seems like what we need. I'm not a black Republican, I just wear a suit and I talk the way I do. But I think their insight was prescient, because we were able to get a bill that was based on racial justice passed in a really moderate legislature with a Republican governor on messaging that wasn't about racial justice. We knew why we were at the table.
What was your messaging?
So our original messaging was obviously like you can't damn these kids to a life the consequences of exclusionary discipline, severe exclusionary discipline. We know the data around it, that people are more likely to have run-ins with the law, more likely to be incarcerated, and then recidivism kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this stems from kicking kids out of school.
Yes.
And
we have that problem here in Louisiana.
absolutely, this is a nationwide problem.
Yes, it's a nationwide problem. We have that problem seriously here in Louisiana.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so that messaging worked for some people. But it didn't work for certain conservatives. It didn't work for certain suburban legislators who, as soon as you start talking about race, their spidey senses went off and they didn't want anything to do with it. So what we did was we dug into the data and found other data points that would motivate people. And the most effective one was that while special needs students make up about 14% of the public school population in this country, they make up a quarter of those who get kicked out of school, of those who are suspended and expelled. And when we were able to use that data point to go into certain legislators' offices, and we go in with like our kids, and sometimes it'd be a big black kid who's 6'5", and we're trying to tell a white legislator, this kid doesn't deserve to get kicked out of school, and they're like, oh no. But when we were able to use the data points about things like autism, it struck a different nerve, because now they could see their kid, and they could also understand it. They could understand what the issue was now. They were like, well, my kid is just different, and my kid requires a different type of attention, but that doesn't mean that you just kick him out because you don't have the resources to be able to deal with him. There are severe consequences that come with that. And that made the story more real for some of these legislators.
So tell me this, though, because, as you may know, I've worked in the public policy arena, and I'm a strong advocate for our disability community and for those who suffer with autism and other disabilities. Why is it that you had to change the messaging from race to disability in order to get folks to understand the need to not throw our kids out of school? Why is that, in your opinion?
That is the $1 million question.
Because you're not the only one doing that.
Yeah, I know.
We often, it's called building partnerships and collaborations. And it's very sad in our country nowadays that white males can't relate to you going in saying the exposure rate of black kids is too high, especially when you look at the reasons they're being expelled. They can't relate to that, but they can relate to you if you say the exposure rate for kids with autism is too high. Then all of a sudden, oh wait, we have a problem of too many kids being expelled from school. We have a problem in America with that.
Here's the reason why. Because the most important thing, particularly when it comes to public policy, and I know that you know this, is getting the policy done. Like getting it, if you got to get it passed, you got to get it implemented. And that is the most urgent thing, and that has to happen in the world as it is. The world as it should be is you can go up to somebody and say, this is the right thing to do, so you should support it. But people don't. People only vote their self-interest, and they only support things politically that are in their self-interest. And so what you have to do often is, you know why you're at the table, but now you have to power map what you're doing and figure out, okay, so what's in this person's interest? What's in this person's interest? And how does the thing that I'm doing match their interest? Now, it would be great if I could just ask somebody to do the right thing. I was the communications director for Together Baton Rouge during the St. George fight recently, and I led on the messaging, and people kept getting on me. They were like, "Well, why aren't you talking about racism? Why aren't you talking about racism? This is a racist, segregationist effort." And I was like, "Well, the people who are voting on it are not. It's not us. It's the people who live there. And for years, they have been trying to create this, separatist school district. So they're motivated in many ways by the racial argument. So why would I tell them? Why would I remind them of the reason why they're at the table? So we were talking about things like tax. Yeah, we were talking about things like taxes, things that are relevant right now, right? Because they are still debating how are they going to pay for being a city.
So where do you stand on this St. George issue? Let's talk about you and your race for council.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of those things that you mentioned earlier, values.
Yeah.
What are some of your values, and how do you plan on getting those values pushed on the council?
So to quickly address the first question, with St. George, it's still in litigation, and all that litigation is about how do you pay to be a city. And I think that the organizers of the St. George effort were dishonest with the voters about how easy this would be. I think that they painted a picture that we're just going to incorporate and then we'll get that school district. They didn't talk about like we're going to have to pay for a police department, a fire department, we're going to pay for all these things. And so where I stand on that is, if the litigation goes in the direction that confirms that incorporation, it is in the parish's best interest that St. George is successful, but we need to be fair, and they need to pay their fair share like any other city in the parish. They don't get to just ride off of what they were riding off of as an unincorporated area, but they get to be a city and they get to create a school district. You got to pay your bills. And so I'm not going to make the rest of the parish take an undue burden for a city that decided to be a city but wasn't prepared to pay for itself. They're going to have to figure that out.
Okay.
My values I think are summed up in my platform, which is real justice, real access, and real investment. These aren't just sort of pithy statements.
Real justice, real access, and
a real investment.
Real investment.
Yeah. And the reason I put the real there is everybody walks through these neighborhoods and talks about those things. People talk about justice, but then like their idea of justice is, the police force coming into the neighborhood and playing basketball with the kids. People talk about access, but their idea is just keeping cats running, but it's not actually, that's not a good system at all.
Right.
And their idea of investment is, in a sense, bending over backwards for Baton Rouge's largest nonprofit, ExxonMobil, while screwing over small businesses during COVID.
I assume I know where you stand on ITEP.
Yes,
Where do you stand on ITEP?
So on ITEP, and I think I probably have the clearest position because it's the easiest one for me to take. I am pretty adamantly opposed.
He just called Exxon a nonprofit. I would say that's one of the top 5 political lines I've heard.
Turn that into a t-shirt or something.
Where do you stand with ITEP?
Yeah, so I am, if elected to the Metro Council, outside of 2 exceptions, I'm not going to vote for any ITEP applications for oil, gas, and petrochem companies. The 2 exceptions are if it's an upgrade specifically about workplace safety, either bringing them up to code or it just increases the safety of the facility. But it can't be like one of these cute things where there's a workplace safety aspect, but then there's all these other things. It has to be specifically that. Or, and this is most unlikely, if whatever it is that they're applying for would result in significant reduction of carbon emissions.
Gotcha.
That is unlikely at Exxon.
Yeah.
So my guess is that the only
Not
applications I'm going to vote for...
Not significant, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So the only applications, realistically, that I'm going to vote for are going to be ones related to workplace safety.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
because that's coming out of, literally, that is coming out of the pockets of our police department and out of our school board and out of all other municipal services. And this is a company that for years was recording record profits globally. But they keep coming back to Baton Rouge and saying, look, I don't know if we can keep operating if y'all make us start paying taxes. And look,
they may go out of business.
Our employees pay taxes, so that's like us paying taxes. You know what? If that was the precedent, there are a lot of businesses right now that are getting really excited about not having to pay taxes because their employees pay taxes. That is a good sweetheart deal.
Okay. So what are other values in your platform that you want to talk about?
Yeah. So let me elaborate a little bit more because with real justice, I think the core of that is policing reform, and I think part of that starts with having a discussion about how we spend our public safety dollars. You're never going to hear me say defund the police. One, I think it's a stupid phrase. I think if you use that phrase, you're not going to get anywhere.
I would agree.
But I think that the motivation behind what people are trying to get at, which is we keep saying that we want a safe community, we want to reduce crime, but all we really are doing is funding militarized police forces to occupy the hood and over-police and mass incarcerate, which leads to more crime. Because as soon as you lock up people who are in desperate situations, when they get out, they have even less opportunity. Right. So why do you think that locking people up is going to make your community safer? We need to actually invest in things that actually reduce crime. So let's use some of that money because we spend, I think, almost $200 million every year on policing and on the court system that undergirds that criminal justice system. Let's use some of that money, if we want to actually reduce crime, let's use some of that money to invest in a year-round youth jobs program. A friend of mine in Illinois, when I was doing that school-to-prison pipeline campaign, I told him I was always going to steal this line. He said 99% of the time when young people get into trouble, they were just trying to get paid. And if you don't give them an opportunity, they're going to go and find one. So let's give them an opportunity. Let's actually invest in job skills training, and not just the stuff that everybody always talks about. Not everybody wants to be a welder or a plumber, and those are good jobs. But let's invest in some job skills training for the 21st century. Let's teach some of these kids how to do graphic design, web design, photography, things that these are skills that I learned when I was 16 in an internship here in Baton Rouge that have paid bills for me to this day. Like, let's invest that money in actually fixing the community, making it more prosperous, and that will reduce crime. Because none of these middle-class communities are rife with crime, and the reason is they're rife with opportunity. Let's make our communities rife with opportunity.
I love the idea of investing in our youth
Yeah.
in order to prevent crime and create entrepreneurs and highly skilled and talented young people that can then stay here and do good work. Unfortunately, in our state, and you may already know this, in our state, every year in the legislature, and this is something I'm going to direct towards our legislators. I know you're not running for the state legislature yet, but you know, our State Department of Workforce, they set and decide what our dollars focus on when it comes to workforce training. And you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, those creative things that you just mentioned, they don't set as priorities. They set welding and trades as priority. And so, but as a city council member, you do have oversight over our local city workforce investment agency, where you could definitely influence how some of those dollars aren't just spent on welders. And we all know that welders make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But as you stated, there are other certificate programs and trades out there that many of our youth could succeed in, that we need to find ways to fund that. So just like they pay for the welders to go to school and the truck drivers, they pay full tuition, they pay for clothing and uniforms. You know, there are other careers out there, especially in the area of STEM, that our young people and adults could really benefit from. But I know for the past 10 years, I've been marching and trying to advocate for opening much wider how we fund our certificate and trade programs. Haven't had any luck, but maybe somebody young like you can
don't put it all on me. I'd be 1 of 12. But one thing I do want to say is the other thing that's different about those sort of creative skills versus those sort of hard skills that we were talking about before is, as a graphic designer, as a web designer, I don't have to work for anybody, right? And the overhead is nothing as long as I have a laptop. I can go and create my own business. I can go and get my own clients. I don't have to work for anybody. If I'm a welder, if I'm a plumber, if I'm a carpenter, 9 times out of 10, I'm looking for employment with the skills that I have. I'm talking about direct skills that these kids, and not just kids, obviously, like everybody, but
adults,
but that these folks can go into the community and immediately start making money for themselves. They don't have to work for anybody.
I want you to keep that same energy if you get elected to the city council, and even more so when you get to the legislature, because there are people out there who strictly want people to work for someone else in our society.
That's not how you build wealth.
There are people out there that set policy who their policy has no desire, their motive has no desire to create entrepreneurs and independent thinkers. It's to create workers. And what you're talking about will be a total culture shift with the way that we fund. Government funds workforce training in our city and state. And so I applaud you for that value, and I hope you succeed with that.
Me too.
Let's talk about, I traveled through your district. Actually, did you say Banks in your district? Okay, I grew up in Banks. I went to Banks Elementary. And
just canvassing there Saturday.
But Banks looked like it looked when I grew up there many years ago. There are parts of South Baton Rouge that look like it, look the same as years ago. What are we going to do about more investment in this area, in those two areas particularly, as it relates to jobs, as it relates to housing and renovations and business creation? What are your plans, or what are your ideas about us investing in areas that have been neglected for decades?
And I think neglect might be a conservative word for it. I mean, we relegate certain communities in this town to second-class citizenship, and that's not fair. I guess there are a few things. Let me first start with, and I guess this is sort of the core of the real investment piece. Private investment has proven over the course of generations that they are not going to invest in our parts of town without there being an aggressive city parish government that is driving that, and a lot of that is going to be public investment that then creates an opportunity for private investment to come in. The vehicles like Build Baton Rouge. So here's what my plan is, and I've talked with Chris Tyson about this. Any company that leases from Build Baton Rouge or the parish in any capacity, they are going to have to prove, and this is for mass employers, when you move into these communities, you're going to have to prove that the jobs that you're bringing, one, aren't for other people. These jobs are for the people here, but you're going to have to show us a plan for how you're going to identify, train, and hire from within the zip code that you just moved into. And we'll give you favorable leasing options. We want this to be a long-term lease because we want this to be real jobs. We want these to be careers.
And they not only take leasing options, but many of them take taxpayer tax breaks and incentives. Yeah.
So here's the thing: if we're going to do something for you, you're going to do something for us. And my view on if I make it on the Metro Council, my view is that the us is everybody. It's not just the Garden District, which is a great part of the district, but it's also South Baton Rouge and it's also Scotlandville. It's also downtown East, which is that is probably the part of town that gets the least amount of attention. But it's one of the most impoverished parts of town. It's the highest concentration of homelessness. If you're going to come into these communities, you need to show how you're going to lift the boats that are already there. Don't create jobs for other people.
Southern University falls in your district also, right?
It does. Okay. It does. Mm-hmm.
And that's a jewel. I know you didn't attend there, but that's a jewel to the world. We need to preserve and protect Southern University.
We were just part of a forum last night, and while the Metro Council doesn't have anything to do with the funding of the university specifically, what we absolutely can do is we can invest in that community. We can actually be proud of Southern in the same way that we talk about being proud of LSU. We can try to push Southern to get the same sort of recognition and opportunities that LSU does in terms of endowments. We can do that simply by being good brand ambassadors for our equally great HBCU, which I believe is the largest physical HBCU in the country. So we should be proud of that school, and it should be part of sort of our collective branding as we talk about Baton Rouge. As it pertains to the neighborhoods, in terms of improving the neighborhoods, and one of the things that's really important, you want to improve the neighborhood, but you don't want to push out the people that are in the neighborhood. These are the people that built it. And
there's that fear in our city that's what's happening in South Baton Rouge.
There's an old saying. There's an old saying in the hood that as soon as you see a Starbucks in a bike lane, like, there goes the neighborhood.
Yeah. Some of those houses they built in South Baton Rouge are extremely expensive.
Yeah.
And the locals cannot afford them.
Yeah, and that's a huge problem. So part of that deal with requiring employers to hire within is we want to make sure that people's wages are going up as property values are going up, because that's always the key to pushing people out. Is property values go up, wages stay the same, and so people who have lived in that community for years, grandmama bought the house, can't afford to pay the taxes on it. One of the things that we want to do is we want to improve the communities in terms of safety, and part of that is aesthetics. When I walk through the Garden District, they talk all the time about how crime went down as soon as they put lights up and had sidewalks. Why is that so hard to do in our community? Why can't we make our community a safe community, a well-lit community? Why can't we make it a walkable community? Why don't we have, and like without the gentrification aspect, why don't we have bike lanes in the black community? Anybody who's ever grown up in the black community, you will see more bikes in the hood than you ever will, in the Garden District. Everybody rides bikes.
We'd love to ride them to the
Everybody rides bikes
in places that we
absolutely. So why don't we have green spaces and bike lanes in the hood? Why are we not investing more in the places that obviously have been historically disinvested, that need us to pay more attention to them? Why are we doubling down in the areas that are doing well, in the areas where private investment sees opportunities and they're going to come whether there's an incentive or not? Why are we not spending most of our time on the Metro Council focusing on places like Banks, focusing on the South, focusing on North Baton Rouge? Like, these are the areas that are the richest culturally, the richest historically, and yet we relegate them to the worst aspect. Yeah, I mean, we put they are Cancer Alley. They're the folks who, every time that we have something every time we have like a tire shredder or something that isn't really pleasant, we put it in the black community, and it's almost as if we really do think that
there aren't any art galleries in North Baton Rouge, but I know plenty of talented black artists from North Baton Rouge.
Most of my mentors in high school were artists. I mean, so this is.
So you're going to do that for us if you make it to the council.
Well, let me not overpromise. I am one of 12. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's the most important thing, is that even if I get elected, what I'm really hoping for is that what it does is it speaks to the energy of folks who are thinking about running in the next cycle. I want more people who are willing to turn down a check from somebody and actually do the right thing.
Okay, so we have 2 more minutes left.
Okay.
What do you want to say to the listening audience about who you are in your campaign? And if you want to give a pitch, you're welcome to give a pitch. Go ahead. Closing remarks.
So, This election is really important, and it's not just important because of what's going on at the top of the ticket. I'm almost specifically speaking to young people when I say this. If you've been out there marching for George Floyd, if you've been out there marching for Breonna Taylor, if you've been out there marching for Danny Buckley, if you've been out there marching for the Alton Sterlings of the world, those issues are local. There's some federal aspects to them, but almost all of those issues are local. Policing reform is local. You want to fight climate change, especially in this town, that's a local issue. You want to address transit, you want to address access, that's a local issue. Most of the things that are motivating people, while they talk about them nationally, these are local issues, and so you need to be invested here locally. Vote locally. If you're a college student at Southern, if you're a college student at LSU, register here, because this is a place that could use your energy. The most important thing that I could probably say about my candidacy is that I refuse to be bought and paid for. I'm not going to be the guy that bends over backwards for ExxonMobil. I'm not going to be the guy that bends over backwards for the largest moneyed interest in this town at the expense of our community. I've walked through too many of these neighborhoods where people talk about how they've had a representative that looked like them for the last 12 years, but they never saw that representative. They never, they call about, stuffed drains, they call about debris, never got a call back, never got any attention to them. These are the communities that built this city. And these are the communities that are voting these people in. They deserve.
Go ahead. Take that.
They deserve the same level of representation as people who make good money, as people who have good jobs. These people are Baton Rouge, and they deserve a representative on the council. They deserve a seat at the table, and they deserve an untainted, unbought seat at the table. Somebody that's going to bang the table for their neighborhood just like they would for any other community in this town. And that's the sort of council person that I want to be. I want to be somebody that people can trust because they can trust my intentions. They know that I'm not making backroom deals that are in my interest but are against the interests of the community. I want folks to know, and that's one of the reasons why I've been the person who's been walking my neighborhoods 3 times, every neighborhood, because I'm going to be the person that represents you. It's not going to be my sponsors. It's not going to be those people. It's going to be me, and you're going to see me. And if I come back in 4 years and I haven't made any progress on any of the things that I've been promising you, don't hire me again.
Okay.
Hire somebody else.
Say your name and ask folks to vote for you.
My name is Quentin Anthony Anderson, and hopefully y'all will vote for me. Early voting starts October 16th.
Very good. Thank you so much, Brother Anderson. Quentin, it has been an absolute pleasure to meet you for the first time. Absolutely. And to hear your platform and hear where you stand on issues. And I'm wishing you the best of luck, not only in this election, but all future engagements that you participate in. Okay?
Much appreciated.
All right. Now we're going to transition over to the congressional race, and you can have Mr. Dartanyan Williams come on in.
All right.
We're going to transition over to the congressional race. We have Mr. Dartanyan Williams. Brother Dartanyan Williams will be joining me. He is going to talk about his candidacy for Congress. He's going to talk about his platform. This is someone that is the first time that I have the opportunity to meet, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. Good morning again, Brother Williams.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
And I've sanitized down the microphones again in between the candidates. How are you? You can push the door closed. How are you this morning?
I'm great, sir. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
Life is good. Life is good. I'd like to open. Brett, tell you. Come on in. You know you don't have to ask Brad. Come on in and just sit down. Go ahead, Brother Williams, and tell the listening audience a little bit about who you are and where you're from and the district that you represent, work background, educational background. Let folks know who you are in your own way.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a country boy, right?
Okay.
From the Delta region of the state, town of St. Joseph, parish of Tenso.
I've been there, yeah.
Yes,
I used to work in Tallulah and other places.
Absolutely. Has a very strong agricultural base.
Close to the microphone.
Yes, sir. Has a very strong agricultural base. And is very basically and specifically educationally and economically impoverished.
It is. It was rated one of the most impoverished places in our country for decades, and it may still be. I don't know. I looked at the data because you get tired of hearing about that it's the most impoverished when things aren't happening, you know. And so, is that why you're running for Congress? Tell us about who you are and your quest to become the next congressman.
Yes, sir. So I'm a father first.
Okay.
Of 4 beautiful children. I'm also a serial entrepreneur.
Okay.
I'm the founder and CEO of Duck Pond Technologies, Inc.
Okay.
I own 10 unique patents in the space of fraud detection, detainment, and deterrent.
Okay.
I'm a best-selling author.
Okay.
Having written my memoir. In fact, best-selling author in 4 categories across Amazon in less than 48 hours as of May the 26th, not later than May the 28th of this year.
Okay. So tell me about your company. I'd love to hear that. What products and what patents do you produce, and how are they utilized in everyday life?
Yes, sir. As of March the 13th of this year, I filed 10 patents with the USTPO, and they exist in the space of detecting fraud, detaining fraud, and deterring fraud. Specifically transactional fraud, check fraud, payment card fraud, and these types of technicalities.
Okay, very interesting. Congratulations on all of your patents, and congratulations on that technology. We need it. I mean, I want my money and my checking account protected. So very well. Where'd you go to school?
Originally, I went to high school at Davidson High School. I did some technical training at Shirley M. Jackson in Faraday, Louisiana.
No, from Faraday.
And from there,
Shout out to Lenore Williams, my classmate and friend from Faraday. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. From there, I matriculated to Southern University. In Baton Rouge.
And what year did you finish Southern?
I did not finish.
Okay, gotcha. All right. What years were you there?
98, 97, 98.
Okay, well, we were there around the same time then.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So tell us, you own your own company, you own your own business.
Yes, sir.
It's doing well. You have several patents. What made you decide you want to run for Congress?
Well, I identify as a businessman with some political appreciations and aspirations.
Okay.
And I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired of the status quo. These last 4 years has been trying and challenging for everyone. I think even the current occupants of the White House supporting base, I think they too have been challenged by some of the obtusity.
Very much.
That has been both embodied and expressed.
Okay.
So more regionally and locally, I know that the incumbent, Gary Graves, identifies with the White House current administration to the tune of 95.5% of the time. And what we cannot do is permit the dialogue of continuity to persist. I believe that it's time to very deliberately and directly run interference so as to disrupt the status quo and do that directly. Okay.
Very good. So tell us about your platform and things that you stand for, your own values, what you're hearing from your constituents in your district, and where you stand on some of the things that your constituents are communicating to you.
Yes, sir. Here in the 6th Congressional District, our platform essentials are in this order of priority: healthcare, education, economics, criminal justice and prison reform, cybersecurity/information technology, with a focus on election security and children identity theft, and by extension, infrastructure and coastal restoration.
Well, let's start off, since it's in your area of expertise. Let's start off talking about this election security.
Absolutely.
I'll start that. That's a topic I must say that no other candidate has talked about. So I'm excited to hear that that's part of your platform.
Yes,
it's very obvious that our voting rights are being eroded in America. And America was founded on the privilege and the right, it wasn't for black folks and women, but to vote. And we won these civil rights over the years. Now, in recent years, those rights are being taken away, as well as the tampering that we know that the current president and Congress. I'm not just saying this because I'm anti-Trump policies and Trump, but we know that Russia tampered with our last election and that he cheated and won. You are the expert, and I'm going to call you an expert because you have patents in fraud and security. What can we do to make people feel as if, or what is being done, or what can we do to make people feel that their vote is being counted when we walk into that machine? And for people like me, we're on social media right now. What do we do about these bots and things like that that spread lies and filth about candidates, particularly Democrats? How do we preserve our democracy and the right to vote, knowing that we live in such a insecure electoral society?
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to remind your listening audience that identity theft is the fastest growing crime in America.
Wow.
and has been for the last 22 consecutive years,
Wow.
dating back to 1998 with the introduction of the identity theft and deterrence.
Yes, I remember.
And then amended again in 2004.
I remember when it got amended.
Whereby the crime of aggravated identity
Yep.
theft was established. And
So government created the gateway for identity theft is basically what you're saying.
well,
These are bills that were passed by the legislature, by Congress.
Sure, government had begun to understand what identity theft is versus what it is not. In today's time, the market, if you will, of group payment card fraud and identity theft is one and the same, when in fact it's not. Payment card fraud can be perpetrated by simply stealing your card credentials, and as such using it by way of a device called a skimmer and replicating a counterfeit in that so as to upload it to a counterfeit card and engage in that transaction. But your identity is actually stolen when your date of birth, name, social security number, driver's license and or ID number, and primary billing address are all used together so as to affect the commission of perpetrating an imposter in your identity. But in understanding that identity theft remains the fastest growing crime in America, we have to ask ourselves when these data breaches happen, where is this information going? Where is it being stored? By whom? Who are the motivating factors, foreign entities that are behind these cyber attacks? And what is being done with American consumer information?
Right.
So the question,
And how is it being used against us
absolutely.
and hurting our democracy?
Absolutely. So when we talk about election security, and when we talk about consumer data, and all that information that's being gathered and stored in servers, in both cloud and off-wire servers, both in an infrastructure here within the United States, but even more so outside the continental U.S. We then begin to understand that there's a greater play at play, and it's for the purpose, I believe, to defraud, if you will, infiltrate the election process, the political process, and as such, plan the Manchurian candidate.
So are you and the others around this country inventing, patenting products that are going to help prevent this and make us feel more secure, or is this a losing battle?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, sir. I hold a patent to what I believe to be the end all be all to the election security, to the election, to voter suppression, the kind that begets oppression.
Yes, yes.
Oppression that begets regression.
Yes.
And that regression that begets social and demographic depression.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we have to turn to biometrics. What we do know is that not a single iris can be replicated. We know that facial contour instruction, facial recognition technology is already in the marketplace, and they're not even twins have the same facial contour. We know that voice recognition is there. We already have that artificial intelligence by way of Siri with Apple, Google Voice with Google, Simon with IBM, and we have thumbprint biometrics. Using 3 of these 4s, we can actually authenticate.
I love that.
We can actually authenticate and forever secure.
You want to push that in Congress when you get there?
I think that becomes a challenge. We either have to do one or the other.
Okay.
But when I get to Congress, I'm more about embodying and representing the concerns of the 6th Congressional District.
Tell us about some of those concerns and how you plan on embodying those once you reach Congress.
Absolutely. Well, those concerns are myriad and varied. Well, we know healthcare is a challenge, and that has been accentuated by COVID-19. And I think that we need to get more attention and focus on expanding Medicaid and Medicare. We know that there are
Hopefully it's still there after if the Supreme Court justice gets adopted. Hopefully where do you stand on Obamacare?
Well, I support Obamacare, but I also support some of the changes and supplementations.
Yeah, it needs improvement. It needs
Yes,
improvement. Healthcare, what else? You said education?
Economics.
Economics. Talk to us about your economics platform.
Absolutely. I want to bring the discussion, the topic, if you will, back regarding the loop and how the city of Baton Rouge.
The loop?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about the loop.
And how the city of Baton Rouge is in desperate need of it. There are 2 major interstates that run in and throughout Baton Rouge, both I-10 and I-12, and the commuters are getting a free pass. The first question that comes to mind when you bring up the subject of a loop is how will it be paid for? And we know that the frame of that expense has to be tripartite. The parishioners have to participate, state government has to participate, but majority federal government has to participate. And even more specifically, those who utilize our transit system coming through to and throughout the state, I-10 and I-12,
A lot of traffic.
Need to pay their way.
Okay, so one part of your platform also is to help get us a loop built.
Yes, sir. And
here.
with the loop, that brings about jobs.
Absolutely.
Hundreds and thousands.
Yeah.
Instantly.
And eases traffic and congestion, and again, making folks pay who travel through our city.
Yes, sir.
What else is on your platform, Brother Williams, for Congress?
I want to give some attention to the hemp industry.
Hemp.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Louisiana is an agricultural state, and it is ripe and ready to bring the technology that the European Union has already implemented, and as such has begun to change the landscape of its economics with it. Mitch McConnell has an appreciation for hemp, and he's looking out for the state of Kentucky.
Is anyone looking out for us in Congress as relates to hemp, as well as marijuana? Where do you stand on legalizing marijuana?
My position in that regard, with regard to recreation and medicinal, I think those things are a matter of time before they come to full scale, as is marketed, if you will, in commerce in the state of California and Colorado. But I want to give more focus on that hemp industry to the stalk of marijuana and how that can be used as a biodegradable product, so as to introduce a different technology and type of plastic into the marketplace that is in fact biodegradable.
Okay, all right. And that's also part of the economic plan, because that is definitely can be an economic driver for us here in Baton Rouge and in your district.
Threefold, very instantly. It would help us to recover some more than the 300,000 jobs that we lost in the midst of COVID-19 as of March. So hemp industry will bring three sectors. Industrial, we have to grow it. Manufacturing, we have to manufacture the products that we intend to sell through retail. So that's industrial, manufacturing, and retail. Instantly, three different job sectors using one product.
Very good. What else? Am I missing anything? Because you have a huge platform, which I think is very high level. I think this platform speaks to a lot of things that we aren't addressing. I think that it's visionary, because I think that, not many people are talking about election security. Not many people are talking about how much the hemp industry can actually, what it can do for our state economically. So thus far, I really like what I'm hearing as relates to your platform on the congressional level. Anything else you wanted to mention about your platform?
Absolutely. We need to give some immediate attention to criminal justice and prison reform. Qualified immunity, aka get off with a free pass, and under the guise of rendering a performing duty, gotta go.
So you're against qualified immunity. Just wanted to repeat that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
We need that change.
We need to have a we need to have a constitutional convention and give immediate attention and focus to the repudiation and eradication of the parenthetical statement in the 13th Amendment.
Break it down for my listening audience.
Absolutely. So before 1863, we did not have what is called a police state. Runaway slaves were captured and hunted down by bloodhound dogs. Post 1863 Emancipation Proclamation, we had a police state, had canine cops, canine dogs, and as such, free slaves were arrested and charged under bogus crimes, and as such, remanded back to enslavement. But in understanding the design and purpose of that parenthetical statement, except it be for a punishment of crime, it has in this days, it didn't abolish slavery.
Right.
It institutionalized it. And we have the same system in our society.
Solidified it.
Yes, sir. Inmates are now under punishment of some sentencing rendered by a biased judge, if you will, have to submit.
If you even see a judge.
Sure.
You got folks who locked up and who waiting to see a judge.
You serve 60% of your time.
Waiting to see a judge.
Right. It's been institutionalized. Inmate free labor should be considered unconstitutional, because it's definitely immoral and unethical and should be deemed illegal. And that's part of the whole design with eradicating the parenthetical statement in the 13th Amendment. Some people were confused, well, why did you want to touch the 13th Amendment? It frees slaves. I want to bring your attention. And your focus to that parenthetical statement, because it is then and there, and between those parentheses, that reestablishes the institution of slavery.
This is your first time running for office?
It is, yes, sir.
How has the journey been?
It has been purging. It has been educational, informative. It has been trying, but for me, it has created an opportunity to grow, and that's the biggest and best benefit of it all, because I've learned things that I did not know understand heretofore. So it has been a couple things.
Okay. How are you getting your message out? The reason I'm glad that you're here on my show, because this is just one way, one medium to getting your message out, and I'll definitely be sharing your message more on my social media pages. But how are you? Because you have a good message. You have a strong platform, but it takes communicating that platform, and a congressional district is huge. So how are you working to get your message out there?
Absolutely.
Besides having this brother Brad Gordon right here on your team,
Yes, sir.
how are you working to get your message out?
Yes, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be introduced to your listening audience. But we're getting our message out in a number of ways. We are all over social media.
Okay. Share your Facebook page and website and things like that.
Dartanyan Williams on Facebook, on Twitter, DAW for us, Instagram, DAW for us, Facebook, Dartanyan Williams /DAW for us, LinkedIn, Dartanyan Williams, and these are all my campaign affiliated or associated social media platforms.
Okay.
We are getting ready to go into radio and TV and billboard advertisement. We are in print, push cards and handbills, and we're getting in the trenches and ditches and meeting voters where they are. We're not running up to people's doors and residences, but we're catching them in the highways and byways.
Very good.
And so as to give them the opportunity to make a discretionary decision whether or not they want to engage, as opposed to trespassing, if you will, and doing otherwise.
Okay.
So we're touching voters, reaching voters in a number of ways, under circumstances and ordinances that the government, state and local, has allowed us in the midst and wake of COVID-19.
Okay. Well, Brother Williams, I want to thank you so much for joining me this morning, sharing your platform for Congress. Again, Dartanyan Williams, he's running for Congress, talked about using hemp as an economic driver for our economy here in Louisiana. He talked about the need for criminal justice reform. He talked about the need for election security and the patents that he owns related to fraud, preventing fraud, and creating a more secure society. It's been a very impressive dialogue, and I wish you and your family, because it's not just you running, your whole family running with you, the best of luck on this journey. And the election is what, November 3rd?
Yes, sir.
Yep, November 3rd. And so Brother Dartanyan Williams has been in the studio, and a very good friend of mine, Dr. Vosper.
Yes, sir.
You know Dr. Vosper, yeah.
No.
She and I have been friends for a very, very long time. She's a sweet and brilliant young lady. And so definitely tell her hello next time you talk to her. Okay. And thank you, Brad, for joining me today. And thank you all for listening to 106.1 FM. What's going on? My name is Dr. James Gilmore. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday morning, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. to talk about what's going on in our community, our state, nation, and the world. Please tune in. Every Tuesday and Thursday we have many more candidates that will be on the show. Unfortunately, I'm all booked up. We've had candidates for the past month and a half, and we'll have candidates the next remaining 4 to 5 weeks. And I'm thankful for every candidate that has come on board to share their platform, and I'm thankful for those that will be here. I know we'll be hearing from Judge Yvette Alexander. I know we'll be hearing from Mayor Sharon Weston Broom, Reverend Reginald Pitcher, Cleve Dunn, just to name a few. We'll be hearing from over the next few weeks. So please tune in here on 106.1, or you can visit my Facebook page. My personal page is James Gilmore. The page for the show is What's Going On, and you can see all the replays from these shows also there. Again, get educated, get informed about the candidates so that you can make an informed choice. Most of all, vote or get registered to vote, because every vote is needed this election cycle. Again, thank you so much for tuning in.